Hello Cinnamon Bun. If you've started a bullet journal but fallen away from it, or if you're using a bullet journal every single day and it's not really making your life that much easier, you might be making some of the mistakes that I was making. So today I'm going to share with you the 7 mistakes that I was making in my bullet journal that weren't helping me, which weren't working for me, and what I did to go back to basics to get it working like a charm. Mistake number 1, no monthly mental inventory. Stress is having too much stuff in your head at once, worrying about getting all of it done. The biggest function of a bullet journal is to remove that stuff from your head and externalize it so that your brain can stop rehearsing it over and over and turning it over and over again in your mind. It's like a pensieve, like a pressure valve. If you've got a bullet journal but you aren't using it to unload all the junk circling in your mind, then you're not relieving the pressure and you're not going to feel any better. Do the monthly mental inventory on some scrap paper. Mistake number 2, no monthly to-do list. So you can see in a few of my spreads, I kind of stopped doing the monthly to-do list. You need a place for 2 things. 1, for everything from your mental inventory that you've decided to keep to go, and also for tasks that don't fit onto a daily spread, like they're not going to be done today, or they don't fit into the future log, so there's no specific future date that they need done. You can't just migrate everything that you need to do across your dailies every single day. You need a monthly to-do list. I would say if you're going to divide your monthly to-do list into more than one, then try not to have a million of them. Like if you want to differentiate different types or categories of tasks in one monthly list, then you can just mark them with different colours or symbols. But try not to have too many, because I for a while had 3 and then 4 and it just got overwhelming. So try and keep it simple. Mistake number 3, weekly spreads. So for quite a long time, I was setting up elaborate weekly spreads in advance that were just too finicky and time consuming and not functional enough. Mistake number 4, dividing every page into columns instead of letting each page breathe. So for quite a long time, whether it was in my dailies as well as a weekly spread, or when I was kind of combining them, I was always working in these thin columns, like half-page columns. And it was ostensibly to save space, but really all this did was make my pages so densely packed that they were really hard to read and annoying to read when I ever went back to them. So I took Rachael's advice to give each daily the full width of a page and to let it breathe, to have a margin, to have white space, because space means readability, and you want it to be easy to go back and read later if you ever want to refer to all of your journaling. This also gave me space to doodle inside my dailies or add these little visual reminders where I would draw, these are suit sprites from Studio Ghibli, and I would have them remind me of things that I needed to remember in these little speech bubbles, which made it kind of stand out. I wouldn't have had space for that when I was dividing everything in 2 and squeezing, like packing every single page. Mistake number 5, decorating every page. I'd really gotten too caught up in the decorative aspects of bullet journaling, and there are so many people out there just using their journals functionally, without decoration and really without sharing anything. But of course, we as humans are visual creatures, and on the internet you can't see how much a spread helps someone, how functional it is, how much stress it relieves for them. All we can see, and all you can see, is how #aesthetic it looks. And so aesthetic bullet journal spreads become all we see of bullet journals online, and it skews our picture of how we think that people actually use them. And we start to think that that's how ours have to look. So for quite a long time, I was like creating these weekly spreads, which were like designed around the decoration, which was just so much work. Rachael talks about this as when you share your bullet journal online and it becomes a performance rather than a personal practice that actually works for you. And if you can balance those two things, then that's great. But I personally, for a while, had shifted far too much into performance and too far away from a personal practice that really worked for me. I am self-employed. I manage and structure every minute of my own day, so I'm a really heavy bullet journal user. I go through a lot of a journal. And if I'm in the mood to doodle or decorate, that is great, but it cannot be a required part of using my bullet journal every day, because then it just becomes another unnecessary task on my to-do list. So like, I used to dread setting up these weekly spreads because of the amount of time that it would take to set this up, like every single week. So now, I basically only decorate my monthly calendar, and every other page is functional and black ink. And if I feel like it, I might doodle in my daily spread or try out a different style of header or something. But otherwise, that's it. Function over form, baby. So as you can see, my setup for May is #aesthetic. Like, I do spend some time making it cute because I know I'm going to be referring to this like all month. And so I do set that up in an aesthetic way. But after that, for my dailies, all I need to do is do this header with a brush pen, and then I keep it really simple. And if I feel like it, I can add a sticker or I can do a little doodle. But my dailies are extremely low maintenance, and the whole rest of the month really is extremely low maintenance compared to that monthly setup. Mistake 6. I wasn't doing the journaling part of the bullet journal. There are 3 standard bullets in the basic bullet journal system. There's the task bullet, the note bullet, and the event bullet. And before I did my big refresh and going back to basics, I was basically only using one of those types of bullets in my journal. I wasn't using the note bullet in particular. So the note bullet is for continually removing stray thoughts from your head and externalizing them in your journal. It's the pensive bullet. This was the biggest and best change that I made, to be honest, in my bullet journal. My weekly daily hybrids were only ever full of tasks, things that I had to do. And so I started to dread looking at my journal and looking at my spreads because I associated it just with that negative feeling of, oh my God, I have so much to do. The mental inventory is a pressure valve for your mind that you use every month. The daily log, the daily spread, is also a pressure valve. It's that catch-all where you put anything that comes to mind so that you can figure out what you want to do with that item or thought later. Maybe it becomes a to-do, maybe it just needs to be filed somewhere else, or maybe when you look at it, there's no action to take, it's just a thought that you had and writing it down at the time was enough. So when people have a brain dump spread in their monthly setup, that's what this is. So personally, I used to do this a lot with I would just call it a notes spread, and I would just have one page where it was just to make random notes throughout the month. But a brain dump spread like this, whether it's 1 page or 2 or however many pages it is, that is finite because you have set a certain amount of pages for it and then you're starting your month. Which that forces you to consider before you write something down, is this thought worth writing down? Is this worth taking up finite space on my 1 page or my 2 pages? Whereas incorporating just this constant kind of pensive action of just downloading your thoughts into your dailies means that you always have as much space as you need because they're rolling. And so, all of the thoughts that you had on Friday can fit there, and then you start Saturday right underneath it. And that actually allows you to censor yourself less because you can stop worrying about the importance of a thought before writing it down. Because you don't need to know how important it is. You write it down so that you can get some distance from it so that you can then decide if it's important later. So again, this continually just writing anything that comes to mind, that pops into your mind while you're going about your day is one of the most useful parts of the bullet journal system. And if you aren't incorporating a way to do that into your system, then I really would urge you to give it a try. Mistake number 7, setting up weeks and days in advance. As you've seen, I used this kind of 2 columns, weekly, daily hybrid spread for quite a long time. But combining this and setting this up in advance, like at the start of the week, on the previous Sunday, with a column for each day, it's just not giving me enough space. Or at least it wouldn't when I started using all 3 bullets, recording what was going on in my life, instead of just recording tasks. So I started doing traditional dailies, rolling dailies, where you write the day, you journal that day, and then wherever you finish, you start the next day right underneath. So sometimes I can manage 4 days on 2 pages like this. Some days I'll use an entire page, in fact most days, to be honest. Or one day can take multiple pages, depending on how much I have to do that day and how many notes I have to take that day. Organising my dailies like this honestly works like a charm. It is one of the most revolutionary things that I did with my bullet journal. And again, this is part of stress relief, because you never have to worry about the quality of what you're writing down or what you're putting into a space, whether that is, a thought, like a pensive, something you're externalizing, or a task, or a few notes, like a mini to-do list almost. Because you never have to worry about running out of space, because you always have as much space as you need. And you just cannot get that if you set your days up in advance. Those are the 7 mistakes that I was making.
Excuse me, Rachel, but what? How do you go from an anti-capitalist diatribe in one video to productivity advice in the next? Isn't that a bit hypocritical and or contradictory?
Oh my God, Peter. I'm so happy you asked that, because do you want to know the biggest mistake that I was making underneath all of that? Part 8. The biggest mistake I was making underneath all of that. First of all, yes, this video is productivity advice. At least that whole part that we just did was. And the bullet journal is really a productivity tool. And like most productivity tools and organizational systems, it can be used for good or for evil. So if the bullet journal is a tool to do something or achieve something in particular, what is that something? What are we using our bullet journals for? The biggest mistake that I was making with my bullet journal wasn't any of the individual spreads that I put together. It wasn't how I was laying out my pages. It was less about how I was using it and more about what I was using it for, the purpose I'd given it. That purpose was making me stressed and overwhelmed and unhappy. I was coming at my journal from an entirely productivity-based mindset. I was using it to flagellate myself for not being productive enough, for not getting enough done, for not being successful enough, for not achieving every single goal that I'd ever had. My top priority for a long time was creating valuable content and making money from that. And that, of course, was reflected in my bullet journal. And I'm sure that goal or that purpose seems completely innocuous to almost everyone, but there's an assumption there. Productivity is so ingrained in our society as being the mark of a worthy person. And I was just chasing that, just like everyone else. A lot of society tells us that that's what our overall goal is meant to be, personal productivity. And that idea is really an underlying assumption in like almost all productivity advice and organizational systems and like self-improvement and self-help and all that kind of stuff. And if you watched my recent video, How Owning a Business Made Me Hate Capitalism, you will know that my thoughts on this changed quite recently. I had a kind of epiphany, really, about business advice and productivity content and the underlying assumptions and ideology that you don't often realise that it's pushing. I kind of started to see the matrix, I guess.
You take the red.
And after I had that epiphany, making money and creating content and essentially creating profit and succeeding as one individual in our current system wasn't really my top priority anymore. And all these productivity tools and systems and organizational things are so associated with productivity and our current system of capitalism that you almost feel like if you're not going to buy into that, then maybe you shouldn't use them at all. Maybe they don't have any worth beyond that. So now that my priorities had changed, did that now mean that my bullet journal and all the other tools that I used to help me get by in our current system were now useless to me? Well, no, not necessarily. The bullet journal is a tool, It's not an ideology itself. My ideology had changed. Like, obviously, I still need to do what I have to do to survive and get by in our current system, but my ultimate goal had changed. I didn't want to just compete anymore to be one of the people who got a big slice of pie. I wanted to share the pies, motherfucker. This is a bad metaphor. I want to make more pies. There's already plenty of pie. It's just that 5 people have all of it. Our current system is a zero-sum game. Having more things means someone else has to have less things, and there are only a certain amount of people who can succeed, as in become very wealthy. And I switched from being just another person trying to hack the system for their own personal success and snag a bigger slice of the pie to want to change the whole system so that we didn't have to compete for slices of pie anymore. This is dumb, there's plenty of pie. Share the pie, god damn it. Before, my bullet journal had started to feel heavy as lead, just this like thing that I was dragging around that was stressing me out, and every time I looked at it I just got more stressed out, to something really kind of magical. And it became more than that. It became more than just a hamster wheel for endless productivity. Instead, it really became a place to declutter my mind, to help me prioritize what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. To be more mindful of how I spend my time, to, yes, organize my responsibilities, the things that I have to do to survive, but also to claw back some space outside of work, to balance work and this crazy thing called not work, life, having fun, and even activism. When I let my bullet journal grow in this way and I stopped using it against myself as this kind of productivity whip, it really started to become fun and light in a way it hadn't been in a long time. It really became this little haven in my everyday life, this little comfy, cozy place that I could go to collect my thoughts and gain clarity and be silly and doodle. It finally started really working for me, really making me less stressed, making me less overwhelmed, and just improving my life in this whole new way. So I guess you could say the real productivity was the class consciousness we made along the way. Thank you so much to Peter Coffin for featuring in this video. Peter's videos are brilliant, and if you are interested in the kind of last section of this about what it all means, then you will love Peter's videos, so go check those out. If you keep a bullet journal and you're going to go back to basics or change anything based on this video, please tell me in the comments. I would love to hear it. And if you like this, you can check out my previous bullet journal videos. They will be linked in the description below. Capitalism likes it when you press the like button. The subscribe button is trash, but you still have to press that before you can press the bell button, which is where it's really at and where you will actually be notified if I make a video. So do what you will with that. Goodbye. We are done, just in time for some cramp, yes. Give me that cramp, yeah. If all the wealth in the world was 3 pies, no, why 3? Why? And after I watched that video, I made it, bitch. Oh, I am hungry, it has just happened. Why do I keep trying to rephrase this from my script? Why don't I just read the fucking script that I already wrote? Being productive makes us feel like a good person. Us as a group feel like one particular good person. That makes so much sense, Rachel. Good job. My bullet journal and organizational systems and this boy can get fucked. I swear to God, this bit of hair!
I don't actually know if you'll use this. I'll bet you won't. Ha! Bye.